Okay, here we go. Let's see how this thing is shaking out. We are going live for this event. I'm kind of ready. All right. I gotta mute this so that you don't hear me talking. But welcome to my live event on from my top management, time management, not just management, time management apps from A to Z, since I'm Canadian, but A to Z. Hopefully the audio is good. If you are having problems hearing me, let me know. I've got my chat window open here. I do have a microphone. Actually, you know what I should do is I shouldn't initially. Bear with me 1 second. Nope, can't do it. There we go. Can't do it. All right, there we go. That's okay. All right, woo. I've got a little bit of a tripod thing, like a little thing here. So hopefully you're digging this. I'm going to be doing one live event per month, and I figured this is a good time to do this one because of the fact that you're probably looking at new apps over the course of the start of the calendar year. But anytime you're watching this, you're like, hey, you know what? I need to get my hands on some really cool productivity apps, some really cool productivity tools. This is where you want to be. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. If you're live, if you're not watching this live, then leave comments, and I'll be sure to address them, whether there's some tools or apps you suggest, whether or not it's you have some questions about the apps that or tools that I do suggest. And I'm not going to show necessarily any screenshots or anything during this thing because I'm doing this via mobile. But I will be dropping all of the links to relevant apps in the description. Not going to rank them because it's just going to be from A to Z or A to Z. But I will be showcasing these as we go. So let's just get right into it. I don't want to take any more time. Again, if you're having problems hearing me, let me know. I do have a microphone kind of going right now, like a little. I have it's like one of those little iPhone kind of. I used to use it for my teleprompter. So there is part of the machine being the iPhone being covered by the handle. So if you're having problems hearing me, I apologize. I'm pretty loud, so hopefully you'll be able to kind of get it as I go. I'll also be drinking coffee as I go. But I think the lighting's better. We're getting there. This is the third live event. We'll get there. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Terry. And again, chime in with questions and that throughout. All right, so let's get to it. We're gonna from A to Z. These are my top time management apps and tools and all that stuff. We're starting 2020 now, so this might be version 1.0, and then I might do this again like in a year from now, so you can see the kind of the evolution, not just of the live stream and of this video, but also of how because maybe I won't do it live next time, but how my tastes have changed. You know, some of the apps and the tools that you're going to hear me talk about today are ones that might surprise you because they are new to me, they are new to you in some cases, and then others you should be pretty familiar with. But if I did this video a year ago, this list would be completely different. So I think this is something that while I don't want to do a lot of these kind of list things very often here on the channel, I think this is a good time to do it. So let's get started. We'll start with the letter A. And so the first tool, and I'm going to drop these in the chat as I go too, is Asana. Asana is my A productivity app. The reason I've been using Asana for many years now. And what I love about Asana is first off, there are no signs of them selling or, being acquired. They were founded by two of the original employees slash, almost, I wouldn't say founders, but up there with Facebook, Dustin Moskovitz, Justin Rosenstein, and they continue to, develop and iterate. Asana may not iterate as fast as some of the other tools that are out there right now that you're seeing, especially in communities like the Key Productive community, or if you're looking at Francesco's channel, the Key Productive channel, and you see all the apps that he talks about. Asana rarely comes up there because they've been around for a long time, so the stability is there. What I love about Asana is that factor. It scales really well. It may not be the prettiest of all the apps. It's certainly a lot prettier than it used to be. Their mobile experience is much better than it used to be. I remember when it first came out, and it was the blue and the gray. And I was like, what is, that you have to make this mobile experience better. In fact, I almost think that people have gone the other way with apps, in that the mobile app comes first and the desktop app kind of gets left behind in some respects. I think there needs to be some harmony between these. Some of these tools that are coming out now are doing that. Some are not. But what I do love about Asana is, again, they iterate in a way that it's almost like their foundation. They don't have to shake the core of it to make changes. For example, Todoist recently did some changes to their app in order to, like they called it Todoist Foundations, with the idea that it's the foundation, which Asana's had like for quite some time. So when Asana adopted boards, they were able to do it in a way that kind of felt like it was happening in the background the whole time. So I really do like Asana. If you are running a big team, or you want something that scales really well for the eventuality that you might have a team, Asana you cannot go wrong with. The pricing is right for smaller teams, and for larger teams it's not that expensive either when you think about it. When you think about the time that you're going to save, I think it can be an all-in-one tool. They've got the conversations component, which is great. They've got now the board, so you can eliminate things like Trello, and you can do Kanban style with certain things. I know what I've been doing for a long time is Kanban Agile style for content, so all the phases of the content creation process. And then I've been using list styles for, hey, like for the podcast, for example, all the things I need to do for the podcast that's in a list form go that way, but the actual content flow goes from left to right. So Asana is my A app. That's A is for Asana. Let's go to B. B is for Blinkist. Now, I've talked about Blinkist before in other videos, in my gift guide video particularly. And what I love about Blinkist is there are lots of other tools out there now that have the ability to, kind of scan through and read business books, or any books really, at a quick pace. I know on Facebook recently there was one that was kind of hit me hardcore, saying, hey, this $12 app can help you get through books faster. But Blinkist has been in the game for a while. I mean, if you've been paying attention to my podcast, they've advertised on the podcast. By the way, none of these apps, just right out of the gate, have paid for any of this. This is not a paid promotion. There are affiliate links that are going to be in the description, but none of these apps have said, hey, can you feature me? So should have probably stated that right out of the gate, but stating it now. One of the things that I really like about Blinkist is they've been around for a while. They do both. You can read the books really quickly, kind of like Cliff's Notes, or in Canada, Cole's Notes. But also they have the audio blinks too. So if you want to listen to something quickly, then you can. As a matter of fact, for my 2 weeks notice series, I borrowed the first 20 hours from the library because I didn't have a copy and I couldn't find one at my local bookstore. And I'm kind of on a book buying hiatus right now. I've got a lot of books that need to be read, so I borrowed it from the library. And I was able to get through a good deal of it, but I wanted to be able to get the fundamentals of it down. It was on Blinkist, so I was able to read Josh's book on Blinkist, get the fundamentals down. Ultra Learning's on there too, so I also went and looked at Ultra Learning and said, okay, well, these are the bare bones, the bare essentials of these books, and I was able to apply that to my 2 weeks notice videos. So Blinkist is a great tool. It's not that expensive. I think it's $100 a year. I think it's a great tool. If you want to get the bare essentials of a nonfiction book, some of the newest, latest, greatest stuff, I would say Blinkist is the way to go. I'll have a link to Blinkist in the description, and it is an affiliate link. They've just switched affiliates, so it'll take a little bit of time to get there, but time for a coffee. Okay, C. C is for the Confidant notebooks. Now, you see what I did there is I could have put Bear and Fig as the B, but Blinkist is really valuable to me, so rather than do that, I've said I'm going to do the Confidant notebooks. Now, you can't see them right here, all of them, but this is the Work and Play. I have the original Work and Play notebook from Bear and Fig right there. I just love these guys. They, again, featured in my gift giving guide, so not a surprise they're on this list, the letter C. Each of these has kind of their own, for me, their own identifier. So much like in that video, one was for my book, this is for the live shows. So I'm doing a live event in February of 2019, or 2020. Can't do it in the past. What am I talking about? 2020. So I use this book specifically for that. The paper's great. They're super nice and like compact. The hardcover element is great. I really like it. And you know they've now doing guided versions of it. So the Clear Habits Journal, which I believe I have down here somewhere. Yeah, I haven't even opened it yet. Yeah, so the Clear Habits Journal. There you go. That's a confidant style notebook. So they do have guided ones now. So if you're into guided notebooks, you can get that. They also have physical planner, like an actual dateless and dated planners too, so you could do that as well. So I love Bear and Fig stuff, and the Confidant notebooks are my go-to notebooks for like my everyday carry style. I mean, I do have the smaller ones too, the little Vanguards. They used to be called Apprentices. And you may see those appear on the list a little bit later on. Okay, let's go to D. Probably should be dropping these in the chat as I go. So B is for Blinkist, and Confidant notebooks are. Let's go to D, and D is for where everything starts for me. Drafts. Perfect. Thanks, Coaster, for dropping those in there. I love those. Yeah, if you want to drop them, if someone else wants to drop them in as we go, we can do that too. Okay, so drafts is, I love drafts. I'm looking at it right now. My list of, on my iPad, my list of all of the apps are right there on drafts. Drafts is one of those tools, and again, sorry Android users, you don't have a tool like this. Drafts is available for the Mac, it's available for iOS. It's where all of my text starts. The dictation capabilities are fantastic, so if you like to say things, and clearly I do, it's really a fantastic tool for that. It's got markdown capabilities. You can hyperlink. You can move it to any app you want. So when when I'm doing YouTube descriptions, like all of these will be written in drafts, and then I'll just copy it onto the clipboard and move it to YouTube. And that's just a simple one. I mean, if I look at some of the other options here, I can save my files. I can append it, and actually that's what I do a lot. Terry, what do you mean clearly? Chime back in. But anyway, don't know what you mean by that. Clearly, I mean, maybe you use it. You love it too. But what I love is I can go into Instapaper, which is where I get all of my links for the Attention newsletter. Yes, I clearly do like to talk, Terry. You're right. What I love about drafts is so for Instapaper, I can look at all of the links that I've accumulated for my Attention newsletter, and then what I can do is I create a draft, and I can move something from Instapaper, the link, and I can append it to that note in draft, and it's now in this longer note, which then I can write the entire post out of. And then I can copy it to convert. I can add links, I can do markdown. If you're an iPhone, iPad, or Mac user and they all sync, which is great, like as I update on the computer, it comes to here. Seriously, drafts is a fantastic tool. So it speeds up everything for me, my writing and all that. So I would highly recommend you check out drafts. I would have put it on my gift giving guide list. It's not that expensive. There's Drafts Pro, so you can have a yearly subscription, which is what I do. I don't even use I use one other writing tool at this point, and I'm honestly wondering, as much as I love it, why I need to even use it at this point other than the management structure of it. You can tag things in it too. So all my journal entries start here as well. Drafts, love it, love it. Next on the list, this was a bit of a tough one. And it's not because I didn't think that it was valuable. Evernote. Evernote is still a staple like Asana in my productivity workflow. Now, again, Evernote's gone through some challenges in the last couple years. And while I see a lot of people moving to other rival tools like Coda, Notion, things like that, Google Keep even to a degree, I must say that when it comes to just being a mainstay in the productivity game, Evernote has still got a lot there. And the reason that it's still one of my top time management tools is because I've invested so much time and attention into it. The web clipper is still superior to all the other web clippers out there for these kind of note-taking apps, although I will say that likely in 2020, that's going to change. I think that you're going to see the other tools kind of up that game. Their cross-platform experience is better than any of the other tools out there. So whether you're using the mobile app or using the desktop or the web, it's better than the others on the whole, and it's just because it's a mature product, right? So the one problem Evernote's always had is that it didn't quite know what it was, right? I think that it tried to be more than it needed to be, and I see there's changes in that with the new CEO, that the direction has changed. And if you want to, I mean, I did an interview with both the ex-CEO and one of the old former executives, Andrew Sinkoff, in my podcast. If you can find those, if you subscribe to the podcast, you can look back and you can find them. But it's interesting to talk to the ex-CEO because one of the questions I asked is like, you had a store, you had Evernote Food, you had all these other things. Like, what's the deal? I don't know where the direction was going. As a matter of fact, and I shared this with productivity people that I know online. Francesco was one of them, actually. Is I always thought that once Chris came on from Google, and once they moved to Google Service, I thought Evernote seems to be prime for acquisition. Like, Google Keep is not maybe worth keeping, so maybe go with Evernote instead. And maybe it would have been like Evernote, an alphabet company. For now, Evernote's the E on my list. I can't say that this time next year when I do this list again, or if I do this list again, that it'll still be there. All right, next on my list in terms of productivity tools, this is a different one, and I've done a video on them as well. It's called Front. Now, Front is my email app of choice as of right now, mainly because it allows me to take emails that I may not want to put into Asana or my task app of choice. And what I can do is I can assign them to members of my team. Now, that's great because I've always said that email is not a great place to manage tasks. I've done a video saying why I was wrong about that, and it's largely because of Front. What you can do is you can use Front in that regard, especially because it links up nicely with Asana. There's so many things that this app can do. My biggest concern with it isn't is number one, it has to link up with Google. Anytime you have to link up with Google and it's a separate app, there's always this kind of weirdness that can happen, especially when Google makes changes to privacy and things like that. In fact, my F might change to Paul Jarvis and I were having this conversation. Paul Jarvis, Kate Flanders, and Mark Johns and I were chatting yesterday at my local coffee shop. And Fastmail might be the way to go. Fathom is Paul's company. There's a few, so privacy is becoming a bigger concern. And Front kind of goes the other direction in that, you can see everybody's emails because you have the passwords, and then you can decide where they get to go. When you're running a small team, that's helpful, especially if you don't want anyone to drop the ball. My problem is my team is so small now that I don't know what I need it. So it's still part of my toolkit, and I love the app. I love what they're doing. They're kind of filling that gap between email and project and task management. So if you're looking for something like that for a team, I would highly recommend it, especially if it's a small team. So that way, if there's certain emails that you need to deal with that come into, say, your sales account or something like that, then I think that's a way to go. So Front app is great. Again, I'll link to all these in the app in the show notes below. Show notes description. All right, G. Now, here's the interesting thing: is for me, this is going to sound weird, but this is my top productivity time management tools and apps. And G for now is GarageBand. Why? Because it's what I use to edit my podcast. I mean, I have my Rodecaster Pro over here, which you can't see right now. And I can't wait to the point where I can have all these things connected so that this live streaming stuff gets even better for me. I want to be like Todd.live. Let's face it. No, I want to get to a point where my buddy Todd.live has all the stuff. I don't have that kind of room in here, but I love the ability to just be able to go live. So number one, that is that's something that I want to be able to incorporate at some point. But until I can do that, GarageBand is solid. I mean, I've been podcasting well over a decade. Most of the time when I was editing Mics on Mics and other podcasts that I was co-host of or whatever, I was using GarageBand to edit it, and I've just gone back to that. Now that I'm producing my own shows again, I'm editing them. And I love editing my shows. I mean, the show notes and stuff I could probably pass off to somebody else, but at this point, that's what I'm doing. So GarageBand, if you are starting a podcast and you want to have an efficient, effective way to start it, if you are on a Mac, The GarageBand version on iOS I don't use. I just find it a little bit too far afield from what the desktop version does. But if you've got a desktop or a laptop Mac and you want to start a podcast, get yourself an ATR 2100 mic. Use GarageBand. Find a host like Transistor, who I love. Transistor is my host, and if you want to host multiple podcasts. If you don't, there's lots of others. There's Captivate. There's plenty of other great hosts out there. And even Anchor. I mean, if you're not really into if you're at that point, especially since they've been acquired by Spotify, and you're good to go. You don't need much more than that. So because of that, because it's so been part of my workflow for a long time, GarageBand makes the cut as my letter G in my top time management apps and tools. All right, let's go to H. This one's interesting in that it's probably, I don't know if any of you've heard of it before. It's called Hindsight. Again, this is an iOS app, so again, sorry Android users. I don't know why I apologize. I've been very clear I'm not an Android user, but nonetheless. So what Hindsight is, and I'm using this for habit tracking specifically, and it is, I would say, a habit tracking tool, so it's fitting that the H is for a habit tracking tool, is it allows you to track the most recent time you did something, so then you can see the patterns that you put in place. So it's almost like a don't break the chain style. So for example, I'm trying desperately to quit drinking soda pop, especially now that I'm doing more on camera stuff and I don't want this, and I'm feeling like, and I'm doing more speaking gigs, so I don't want to have, I really want to quit pop. And it's been a huge struggle for me. So in Hindsight, I have and I might do a video on this one because I like it, either here or inside the Time Crafting Trust membership. But what you do is you say, okay, this is the kind of, you have a categories of different types of things you want to track. So I've got like the bad habits and the good habits. So I put drink soda pop as a bad habit. And then every time I drink soda pop, I have to create an occurrence. And you can go back and create existing occurrences and stuff like that, but you get to see the data, and it's very simple. It's not like you have to go in and program, it's just tap, and then all of a sudden it's like, yep, that's the last time you drank it. And what it does is it kind of creates this, hey, here's how long it's been since you've done this. So if it's a bad habit, you want that number to be nice and long, but if it's a good habit, you want it to be short. So if I want to go work out, if I want to go for a run, which I'd like to do today, then it'll say, hey, it's been like 3 days since you've done a run. You might want to do that. So that's how I'm using it. I love it. It's not free. It's like $4.99, I think. But I really like it. It's just simple. I mean, I know there's lots of other ones out there that, and I've tried a whole bunch of different habit apps. This is the one I seem to like, that I just seem to like the best. It tells a story. I think that's maybe why I like it. So Hindsight, that's my H in terms of time management apps. So we're getting there. We're moving along. I already mentioned this one a little bit earlier. And this one, it's been around longer than another tool that people use in this space, and it's called Instapaper. A lot of people use Pocket, right? But I used Pocket was not around, at least not public. I don't think it was publicly around before Instapaper was. And so what I love about Instapaper is it's just, they've gone through some changes in ownership and things like that, but I really like Instapaper because there's a cleanliness to it that I've always enjoyed. The extensions, because it's always built with iOS and the Mac in mind. But the way I use Instapaper, it's part of my reading workflow, is I will get, let's say I check Reader for my RSS feeds, REEDER. And by the way, it's not going to be the R in this list, so no spoilers there. And then anything that comes up there that I like, I will then move to Instapaper to give a full read. So I use Reader to almost scan things, and then I use Instapaper to kind of really deeply read it. Same thing with Flipboard, which, as you probably know, did not make the cut as my top F app or tool. Same thing, Flipboard, I can move them to Instapaper as well. And in Instapaper, I have folders. So I have a folder for the Attention newsletter. I have a folder called Cool Things to Share on Facebook. I have a folder called Cool Things I've Shared on Facebook. And then things like gathering research, like I've got stuff for the Night Owl and things like that. So I can put these in these different folders, or I can just leave them unfolded. And then what happens is when I look at Instapaper, I can then do what I said earlier. I'm like, oh, this is something in attention that I want to put in my next newsletter. I'll move it to drafts. Oh, this is something that I want to share on Facebook, and I can share it directly from Instapaper into Facebook without having to open up Facebook. It just shows up as an extension. I do a lot of this stuff on my iPad, but there is Instapaper extensions on the Mac. If you're reading your RSS feeds on the Mac, you can do that as well. I don't know that, I'm pretty sure Instapaper is iOS and Mac only. But again, I dig it. So it's my it's my eye app. It's my eye tool. All right, the next tool, and I'm stressing that right now, is, for letter J, is journaling. I don't care how you journal. I don't care if you use aforementioned tools like Drafts, Evernote, don't care. I don't care if you use Day One, which also, by the way, you noticed, which is my journaling app of choice, by the way, is not listed as my D app. Drafts just, without Drafts, I think it would be there, but it's not. Journaling is a super powerful time management productivity tool because, again, I talked about telling a story with Hindsight. It tells a story. So whether you are using and I have I have an actual notebook that I put, almost like meditation style in here. All right, so I have this. I have, there's the bullet journal method some people use, right? And man, that didn't go in as easily as I'd hoped. Day One, Evernote, Notion. Journaling is a powerful productivity and time management tool. So out of all of the ones that I've shared so far, if you're going to take one of these tools and use it, start with journaling. Ryan Holiday in his latest book, Stillness and the Key, has a whole chapter on journaling. If you've read about journaling before and you're like, I don't know, it seems like a waste of time, there's a 5-minute journal app and book. I think if you can take that 5 minutes, you've been watching me now for 26 minutes, right? If you could take 5 minutes, if you could take 1/5 of that time, that's all it would take. And really, it's such a small amount. Journaling is my top time management tool for the letter J, and it might be the top time management tool of all the ones I'm going to mention today. So journaling, find something. If you're on Android, use Journey. Again, Notion is available. If you want to use a handwritten journal, there's tons of options there too. Journaling, it's highly undervalued, highly underrated. I can't stress it enough. All right, letter K. K is something that I'm going to be using a bit more frequently this year, especially with the book coming out. It's Keynote. Again, native to Mac, but and iOS, but it's so solid. It just makes your slides look great, makes your presentations look great. It's seamless, especially if you've been for me, I've been in the Apple ecosystem for so long that it's not that challenging for me to just put together a Keynote presentation. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, Michael Hyatt, who I'm a big fan of, and he's got a lot of great productivity tips, and I mean he's phenomenal. I remember, I think he wrote some of his earlier opt-ins in Keynote. Like, he actually used Keynote and then exported it as a PDF just because of how robust the tool was. This is, of course, before iBooks and all that came along. So Keynote, if you're putting slides together, any kind of slide presentations, and you're on the Mac or iOS, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, yes, you can export to PowerPoint. Most of the time when I'm doing webinars and things like that, I export it to PDF just because PDFs are universal. So that's another thing. So even if you are somebody who presents and you're not sure where or what equipment you're going to be using, like I can bring my iPad and normally it will work because I've got the connections wherever I go. I learned that, I think Merlin Mann talked about that once on Back to Work, and he said, I will never, ever not bring my own equipment again, because when you rely on somebody else's equipment, it can be problematic. So I would say that Keynote for me is the big one that I use for presentations. I've tried other ones too. I've tried DeckSet, I've tried Prezi, I've tried just a ton of them. Keynote, it's just a time saver. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a talk a week from, I'll be on a plane a week from today as I record this to Austin to speak at ProductivityCon, and Keynote's where I'm putting all the slides together, So, and actually I'm doing a Facebook Live. If you're watching this live, I'm doing a Facebook Live a little bit later today with the ProductivityCon team, so you can check that out if you want. But yeah, Keynote. There's not a lot of K tools either, so it wasn't hard to pick that one. But if you're on the Mac or iOS and you're putting presentations together, or you want to even you want to put a PDF together or a book or something nice you can create for an opt-in, Keynote will help you do that. All right, let's move on to L, and this one is a tool that I use here on YouTube, and it's not a tool that I would say is something that everyone's going to need, but for me, I love Luma Fusion. I discovered it 3 years ago now at VidCon. They're a small team out of Seattle, and if you are looking for a robust this is an iOS editing tool, you cannot go wrong with Luma Fusion. Now I'm starting to use DaVinci Resolve on my Mac. I'm learning this. I'm not an editor. I have Dom who does a great job with that, but I do want to be able to have a working knowledge of this stuff, so I'm kind of learning in the background. Especially now that I have my moment lenses and all that stuff, and I've got my good camera and putting all this stuff together. So I want to have a working knowledge of this stuff, and then just get better and better over time. I would say that Luma Fusion, if you're going to be editing on your iOS machine or your iPhone or whatever, get Luma Fusion. It's what, like $30, I think, which is not cheap for an app, but man, it has the ability to import. You can color grade inside of it. You can do a lot of really cool things. Like most of the videos that in fact, all the videos I edit are using Luma Fusion. The only thing I have trouble with is the sound portion. So what I have to do is I have to export it with the sound raw and then then I have to make some adjustments on the Mac that way. But I think that's just a learning curve that I have to get past. I'm sure there's a way just to do it there. But if you're wanting to make videos for YouTube and you want to have it all in one place where you could like film on your iPhone and edit on your iPhone, Luma Fusion, I love it. And if you're looking for people, there's lots of YouTube channels that help you with this. Henny the Business is great. He's fantastic. There's lots of really cool places that will help you with editing on Luma Fusion. So I would check it out. If you want to make the editing process as seamless as possible and you want to have it look crisp and good, check out Luma Fusion. All right, let's move on to M. And this is a former sponsor of my podcast. It's Meet Edgar. They also sponsored the newsletter on a few occasions. I used them a long time ago. And when I say a long time ago, we're talking like 5-6 years ago, I believe. And I've recently come back to them. I will admit I came back to them because they got involved with a sponsorship. And I don't allow or take on sponsors that I don't believe are credible in terms of, not in terms of what they offer, but in terms of what they can offer people that are keeping up with my work. So Meet Edgar, what I love about them, and I was using SmarterQ before that, and I really do like SmarterQ, but what I love about Meet Edgar is there's just a robustness to that tool, especially if you're doing your own social media, that I absolutely love. The ability to have buckets and things like that. I'm just a big fan. I still have a lot of setting up to do because there's just so many other things I've got going on. But when the book is coming out, when I want to do podcast releases, with the launch of my event coming up in February, to be able to automatically just go into Meet Edgar and add a bunch of things so that it's in that queue, not just for the immediate, but then it's saved there so I can revisit it later if I want, like just to have a flow in there. It's great. If you're looking for a social media automating tool, I would say that Meet Edgar is definitely one that you want to check out. So check it out. Again, there'll be a link in the description to help you with that. There's educational components to it too, so it's not like you have to sit there and go, how do I use this thing? Once you sign up, you'll have education for it and everything. I love it. I'm really glad that I jumped back in with Meet Edgar, and I can't recommend it highly enough. That's why M is not an uncommon letter. I guess Mike could be the tool. Maybe Mike is the top time management productivity tool for me, or me. Maybe it's just me. But Meet Edgar is definitely the one that I would recommend. So let's move on to the N, and I have a feeling you're going to know what N is. Notion. So I finally jumped on the Notion train not too long ago. I have a video that goes through my 2 weeks notice experience with Notion, my little learning experiment. I'm spending time with Notion, putting together this event, doing some bigger planning. There's things I'm not using it for. I explain all that in the video. But Notion, the one thing that I've always been concerned about is that any tool that can do everything, you always kind of got to temper with what you really need it to be doing. I would check out Marie Poulin's channel. I would check out Francesco, of course. There's lots of Jared. I think his name is Jared Allen. I think he also has some great stuff on YouTube. There's lots of things you can learn about Notion. You can get really lost in the weeds with it though. So start, if you're going to use Notion like I have, start with one thing and move from there. But I mean, it's the hot productivity app right now. It's been the hot app for a while. It does save time. I will probably use it also to build processes for team members and things like that. And for filmmaking, we've talked about that before, following in the footsteps of Thomas Frank. You know, I mean, he's got a great system, and I figure if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, you know, copy, what's steal like an artist, Austin Kleon says. So there you go, stealing like an artist. So Notion is my productivity tool that I use that hits that letter N. Okay, let's move on to O. O is Overcast. I love listening to podcasts. You should know this by now. If I'm a podcaster, I love listening to them. In fact, one of the things I do as a podcaster is if I know a guest is coming on, is I will go into Overcast, which is on iOS, and I will, I think it's on the Mac too, but I exclusively use it on iOS. And I will look up the guest and see what other podcasts they've been on and do my research that way. Sometimes I read their books. I get the books a lot of the time, and I will take the time to read them, but I don't always have time to read them. I now know what talk show hosts go through when they say, have you read the book? I'm like, oh no, I haven't read the book. So Overcast, I just love the smart speed features. The user interface is great. Marco Arment, I mean, my word, this guy gets UI. I mean, he just gets it. So I think I believe I had the pleasure of meeting him a few years ago when Macworld was still around. But if you're listening to podcasts and you want the best, in my opinion, the best podcasting experience, I think Overcast is the way to go. Yes, you can listen on Spotify, the free apps that are out there, but if you're on iOS, I mean, it's inexpensive, and one of the things that I've known about Marco's work is that he puts a lot into it, and he's made some great things over the years, and I want to support third-party developers. I've seen too many third-party apps go the way of the dodo because it's just, you know, they can't support it. So free works to a point for testing and things like that. I think that if you're listening to podcasts on an iOS device, there's lots of options out there. But for my money, the one that allows me to be more efficient, I guess, or more productive, is Overcast. I have tried Pocket Cast. I think one of the things that I've become, Jen, is I've become kind of, maybe I've become that guy that's like, I like this app, I'm just going to stick with it, right? Castro's another one, right? Like there's no shortage of podcast apps. I think Pocket Cast is paid too. And it's good. But the smart speed features that I like. I love the smart lists too. I love the ability to be able to create lists that are smart and exclude certain episodes, not just certain podcasts, but certain episodes of podcasts. I have lists that, like, if I favorite something, it goes into this. I have like a vanity list too, where it's like, oh, I've been on these podcasts, because often what will happen is when I'm on a podcast, they will say, if there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. And of course, when my book comes out, I'm like, hey, remember that time you said when I was on episode blah, 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 blah? Is there anything I can do? So there is some filtration and functionality there that I really like. But like anything else, I think once you've started using something, and I talked about this with a bullet journal video that I did about, you know, my 2 weeks experience with intensely, you know, diving into the bullet journal. And I know that, I don't think, and Downcast, Terry's mentioning Downcast, and Downcast has good, is Downcast even still developed actively though? I don't think it is. I think it's still there, but I don't think it's actively developed anymore. I used to use Downcast. I think David Sparks was the guy who turned me on to Downcast, and then he was the one that kind of turned me on to Overcast. He kind of keeps up with all the Mac stuff. If you're a Mac person, you should be following Mac Sparky forever and ever, amen. And I lost my train of thought, so there you go. I think that you can't go wrong with any podcasting app outside of the ones that are native to your device. I think the ones, like anything, a third-party app because they're spending a lot of time just on that. Look at what happened with Drafts. I'll mention this earlier. Drafts had another app called Interact. Greg Pierce had created one called Interact. And he closed it down. It was a contact management app because contact management on any device is hard. And he's like, I want to dedicate my full focus to Drafts. And he's made Drafts better as a result. It's the same thing. You're going to give your full attention to an app. It's going to be great. Whereas with the, whether you're using an Apple device or an Android device, if this is the native app, there are certain things that a third-party developer will go, oh, what if we did this with this? So again, I think that with Overcast, Marco's had so much experience in iOS and with the Mac that he was able to say, okay, here's some of the things that I can do, and I can scale. And so that's what I really like about it. So again, I'm using a tool consistently. I've the bullet journal thing. So because I have my own methods. I've got my own planning tools that I use. When I was going into the bullet journal, I was talking to Kate Flanders about this yesterday, actually, because she uses the bullet journal, but doesn't use it the same way that you see as quote prescribed. And when I say prescribed, let me be clear. Ryder's not saying, hey, you must use it this way. It's just the foundation, right? So she doesn't use it that way. And she says, this is how I use it. I use this part and this part and this part. And I think that if I had never used the bullet journal system or any system to that point, I probably would be like the, devoted, I use my bullet journal this way, kind of like there's GTD purists. I probably would be a purist that would then add things to it. I think the same thing happens with apps. Once you're in an app for a while, you're like, okay, my head needs to wrap around things differently. That's why when I was using Trello, once Asana introduced boards, I'm like, I'm out. Why? Why would I use Trello and Asana? Let's just use the boards in Asana because the same principles apply. That was an easy switch. Moving from another app to another app, it needs to be a fairly simple and easy switch. All right, let's move on to we're moving along pretty good. We're now on to the P, and this one is different. And it's an app I've been recommending a lot on the podcast lately. It's called Pocket Biases. Let me take a quick sip of coffee real quick here. I don't have to tell you that. You can see it. What I like about Pocket Biases is, what I really like is that I can look quickly to see all these biases that I talk about, confirmation bias, all the cognitive biases that are out there, and really kind of use that to help people with coaching and help me understand why certain elements of time crafting might not work with someone, and help understand myself too. So it's not like, there's plenty of other P tools out there, but it's one I've been referring to more and more, probably because of research for me saying, hey, okay, you know what, let me look about time dilation, let me look about the and I'll always pronounce the Zeigarnik effect. I should have looked that up. I should know this by now. All of the biases that show up, I want to be able to look at those really quickly. I think it's pocketbiases.glideapp.io. I will link to it in the description below. But if you're interested in understanding like why we do what we do sometimes, what the biases are, you can have it handy and it's right on your phone. So, and it works on any device. So. That's a real quick, simple one. It's more of a self-understanding tool that will help me manage my time and my attention better. So there you go. Moving on to an app that's actually, I believe, been killed. I don't know you can get it anymore, but it's still part of my workflow. And I was going to put Quora in here because I'm going to spend some time with Quora this year, answering questions, things like that. But Quotebook is the one that I'm putting in here as my queue, and the reason is because I saved a lot of quotes in it over the years. I can still move things into Quotebook thanks to Drafts, so I mean, while it's not necessarily an active app, I really do like it. It just displays the quotes really nicely. So it kind of goes hand in hand with Pocket Biases in that when I use it for research and things like that, it's right there. So Quotebook, it's not a sexy app. It's not a sexy tool, but it's one where I can say, hey, what are some of the quotes that I've heard, and I've actually saved some of mine in there too. I used Evernote to do that for a while, but then if there's something really nice, I want to put it in a Quotebook because I like to throw, like frameworks foster freedom, focus on the app within. Things I've said a lot. Your mind was meant to be a factory, not a warehouse. those kind of things. I want to have them in one place so I go, oh, well, here are some of the quotes that I can throw down. And then I can include it in my writing or in talks or anything like that. So Quotebook is a reference tool that I still use. iOS only. Again, sorry, Android users who are watching this going, why is he not mentioning an Android app? I mentioned a couple that are cross-platform. But I'm an iOS user. I'm not going to apologize for that. Let's move on to R. This was another tool that I've returned to recently. And it's not, I used Canva for a long time to build my thumbnails. And I'm actually not using, I've used Relay That for a few of the thumbnails here, but as of late, I've been kind of really trying to get, being quick about it. So I've been using WordSwag on my iOS device. But Relay, what I like about what Craig's put together with Relay That is the branding options and the different sizing and things like that. So some of the ones like the How to Be Productive When You're Tired, which I'll link to, that one has a thumbnail from there. And once Noah and I have some more time together to kind of spend time and make things like some cohesion in there, I'll be using Relay That as a branding tool for creating imagery. More than anything else. So I really like it. Again, it's desktop, so you could use it on whatever, web-based rather. So you use it on whatever machine you want. There is no mobile app for it. So that might be the one friction point for me right now, is that I have to actually go to my desktop to do it. But I think with that would be me batching. So if I'm going to take a bunch of photos for thumbnails, and I'm planning enough content far enough in advance, especially with video, that I should be able to do that. I can spend some time with Relay That and really lock it in. So if you're not using, if you're looking for a tool to create some, not just some great looking, thumbnails or artwork or branding, and you've tried Canva, but there's some stuff there you don't like, or there's some lack of consistency, Relay That is, I've known Craig for quite a few years now, and the fact that he's been focusing on this and making it better and better over the years, I'm glad I'm back in the fold. And I think you should check it out. So Relay That, it helps speed up a lot of my image creation processing. So I would say that Relay That is something you should definitely check out. Let's move on to S. Remember earlier when I cheated with the Baron Fig Confidant? Cheating again. You can see them right over my shoulder here. There's a couple Squire pens. They're the very, very highly sought after experiment. That was a gift from Joey. From Baron Fig, and then the Key, which is the pen. I love my Baron Fig pens. The Squire is, I have too many of them now. Actually, what's funny is I'm looking at all of them and I've been trying to, okay, which one should I use now? Which one? I probably have too many. My wife would say I definitely do. I recommended them in that 10 gift giving video. If you're looking for a nice quality pen to start journaling with, or to use for your paper planners or your bullet journaling or whatever, can't go wrong with Baron Fig. It's been voted one of the top pens out there on the market today, and there's a reason. The limited editions are hard to come by. That experiment pen right there recently in the Baron Fig's Fanatics group, somebody paid $350 US for. So why don't I sell this one? Well, because it's a gift. I don't think you sell gifts. But I have other ones that I may eventually say, hey, you know what? I don't really use this one very much anymore, and I don't need 10 of these, because I think I have 10. So let's move this one on. Again, I highly recommend their pen selection. They've got some great ones. The limited edition ones tend to go quickly. So if you're wanting to start with a Baron Fig pen, you could get like one of their basic Squires. The charcoal ones are really nice. I don't have a charcoal one yet, but I think Casey has one. My friend Casey Proctor has one. So I've seen them and they look really nice. I have one of the original Kickstarter ones, and I have a gray, a blue, the experiment, the Key. I have the editor, which you can't see in that photo. I've got the clear one. There's so many. I would start with, if you're confident, see what I did there, confidant? I would get one of the limited editions out of the gate, because they go quickly. And then if you don't like it, just hold on to it for a while, and you can probably sell it back to somebody who really likes it for a tidy profit. There you go. Little pro tip there. The Squire pens, that's my S choice. And there's a lot of S's to choose from, but I use them every day and I love them. All right, let's move on to this one is going to be a bit of a different one for you as we get close to wrapping up. It's called Time Hero. It's the one I'm moving to. It's the app that I'm moving to for my team-based productivity. Now, I'm also looking at Amazing Marvin for stuff as well, but I think I'm going to use that largely for myself. And you're like, why isn't Todoist there? I really like Todoist. I think that they've put together some great stuff, and they're kind of in that same vein as Asana now, where they're iterating just enough, but they've got some solid things in place. I would recommend Todoist to a lot of people, especially people who are looking for their first to-do list app, because it's got that simplicity, that flexibility, that durability, the minimal, clean design. But there's something about Time Hero that allows me to deal with my theming a lot more. I'm spending more time with the attunement between my calendar and my to-do list. And not in a way that, like, say, Todoist allows you to sync to your calendar, and not in a way that Asana does that too. But nonetheless, I believe that what Time Hero offers is pretty cool. I like they allow me to have tasks. There's Gantt charts built in. It's not cheap. I'll tell you that for a productivity tool. If you're just getting into it and it's a solo tool, it's more expensive than maybe what you're used to, but the power under the hood is fantastic. They're working on a lot of cool things too that they're planning on implementing that will make it even better to use time crafting capabilities with it, as is Amazing Marvin, which I'm also looking at as well. And I'm bored with Todoist at this point in Asana. Maybe it's time. I mean, this is the time where I'm looking at things. It is good for time blocking, because it automatically looks at your schedule and says, okay, well, you're going to take this much. It's basically using time. So you say, hey, it's going to take 2 hours for me to work on this thing. Remember Sunrise? It has that capability to go, okay, well, this is when we're going to fit into the schedule here. So you look at your calendar view in this tool, and you're like, in Time Hero, and you're like, okay, well, these things are going here. I give it a look. If you're interested in time blocking and using theming as an element, I would look at Time Hero. I will likely be giving it a 2 weeks notice treatment very soon, along with Amazing Marvin. So there will be videos for both of those tools, and once there are, you'll see them right up there, right here, right there. Yeah, that's where you'll see them. I would say that, who knows, it might be on this side. But I would check them out. Check the free trial out, especially if you're wanting to have that alignment between your calendar and your to-do list. I love them. It doesn't hurt they're a Canadian company either. I'll be honest. I love working with Canadian companies where I can. So I would check them out. I'll have a link, and the link is an affiliate link in the description. So I'll make sure that you get that as well. All right, let's move on to the U. So remember earlier I said that I use drafts for all my writing, and there's one tool that I'm still using, and the reason I use it is probably because of the filing capabilities. This would be the one, Ulysses. I really like using Ulysses because there is a seamlessness between drafts and Ulysses that I really enjoy. But Ulysses is where all my blog posts end up when they're done, and it's where my book got written. So yes, the book got written in drafts, but it got organized inside of Ulysses, and then I had to move it to Microsoft Word because, that's what you have to do with books if you're dealing with a publisher. Sean Blanc has put together a great course called Learn Ulysses, which I think if you're wanting to take on a tool like this, it's great. Again, like drafts, it's iOS and Mac, but they all sync together, which I really like. It talks to drafts really nicely. There's some great modifiers. It's like if you've ever used Scrivener, which again is for Windows, and so if you want to use Scrivener, that would be your alternate here. But if you're writing books, you're writing a novel, like let's say you're going to do National Novel Writing Month in November, or you're going to do anything like that, I would say that Ulysses for the Mac and iOS is the way to go if you're using those tools. The equivalent would be Scrivener. There are lots of other tools, great writing tools out there, but I haven't stopped using Ulysses because of the way I can organize my workflow with that kind of thing, with that kind of writing. So it's where the finished product kind of ends up. And while I can do this in drafts with tagging and things like that, it's not as clean. So that's why Ulysses is still part of my workflow, and I still recommend it highly. All right, we're getting close to the end here. We're in the final final phase. Next one, video. One of my top time management tools. Why? Because you can learn quickly with video. In the last 55 minutes already, you've learned like 24, 22 tools that I use. Video is a great way for me to convey my message, and I'm spending a lot more time with it. So watching video, learning from video, spending time in video. It is, I mean, I might be late to the ball game here, but it is one of the top ways that you can, you know, level up your time management, level up your productivity, as long as you're smart about it. Like, you can get sucked into the YouTube vacuum, get sucked into the Skillshare vacuum. Skillshare has been one of those tools that help me with video. You know, I've done some other video for other groups that, you know, Creative Live, for example. Video is just a fantastic way for you to up your time management. But again, I would, if you're gonna either learn a lot from video or spend time in video, I have that looking day that I have on Tuesday. Spend some time using that as like, okay, this is when I spend some time watching video, or earmark some time as a horizontal thing to do that, because yes, it can be quite the time suck. But for me now, it's more about creating video as well, like spending time with you here right now, teaching you, showing you, getting myself on screen, getting more comfortable with camera, so I'm not looking at the screen, but I'm looking at the camera, things like that. Video is a fantastic tool for you as a learner, for me as a learner, but also for me as a teacher. So I would say that, as weird as it sounds, there's lots of other, there's Vimeo, there's a couple other tools that start with the letter V that I could have recommended, but for me, I think the all-encompassing element of video is one of my top time management tools from A to Z. All right, let's move into the next one, and now we're into like, you're like, what about your calendar, Mike? Well, this is my calendar app of choice, Woven. I love what Woven is doing. I love the ability to create templates, which you can do in other tools. I love the ability to have group polls, which you can do in other tools. I love the ability to be able to give people links so that people can schedule things with me, which you can do in other tools. But what I love is it's all in one place with Woven, the smart scheduling tools, all that stuff. What I also love is that when I send someone a Woven link, it will overlay over, if they're your Woven user, they will overlay over top of their calendar. So, you know, if you get like a link from another calendar program and you're like, okay, let me look at the link that Mike sent. There it is. Okay, now let me look at my calendar. Okay, let me look. Okay. Whereas with Woven, it's interlaced right over top. So you could, if you're a Woven user, you go, oh, well, here's this free spot I have. Here's a free spot I have. Here's a free, oh, here. They are making some great strides. The one thing that they don't have yet, which I wish they did because I still have to use another calendar app on my iPad, is they don't have an iPad native app yet. But you can go on the web, I guess, the web version. So there's that. I love it. Woven.com. It's great. Seriously, if you're looking for a calendar app that has all of the powerful calendaring tools that you need, group polls, templates, all of that stuff, you can't go wrong with Woven. So that is my W tool. All right, let's move on to the letter X. This one, you're like, uh-oh, Mike's in trouble. There's no way he can have an X. Yes, he can. Xero. We use Xero for all of our accounting and bookkeeping. All right, well, our bookkeeping, we have an accountant. Payments, invoices, all that stuff. My wife just, as we were doing this live, she's like, hey, I just looked at Xero and this and this and this. So Xero, if you are managing sales, if you have people that you're going to be paying, if you have, if you're running a business, Xero is great. Our accountant works with Xero exclusively, so that's another thing. If you want to have an accountant, find one that, and Xero has some experts listed on their website that you could say, hey, I want to work with Xero, can you help me? There's even a team in town here in Victoria that does this too. So we love it. It's made things a lot easier for my wife and I when it comes to running our business. So I would say that Xero, if you're looking for an accounting app, something that integrates with a bunch of other apps as well, Xero is a winner. It's an absolute winner. And it just takes a lot of the pain out of managing that aspect of the business, which really allows me to spend my time and attention elsewhere. So Xero is what I recommend with the letter X, which leads in nicely to the letter Y, which is you need a budget. YNAB. There are, you know, I used this tool for a while when it was available on Steam. Yep, Steam had it. You could get it for Steam, that gaming platform that people think is just for gaming, but apparently not, because You Need a Budget was available there. I love You Need a Budget. I probably should spend more time in it and use some of the other additional functionality that they have, but YNAB is, they call it YNAB for short. What I love about it is it kind of compels you to spend time looking at finance, but but you can create budgets simply and easily, and you can kind of see where your money's going. You can automate it so you can have transactions happen automatically, but in Canada it's not as simple. Like some banks in Canada just don't hook up with YNAB very easily. So we have we use this for personal, professional stuff. I can say, okay, well, I'm using it with Profit First system, so I can say, okay, well, if you've ever read Profit First, then you know that there's certain categories. And unlike, in the book, it recommends setting up bank accounts for all these different things. In Canada, it's not just so simple to set up that many bank accounts. You can, it's just a real pain. So we just have separate categories in YNAB to do this. And then we move things from those buckets to the budgeted buckets. It's just making things a lot simpler. It's, again, taking the pain out of finance when it comes to managing our money, and then I can actually spend time doing the things that I should be doing, like this. So if you're looking for a budgeting program, and there's lots out there, I would recommend YNAB. It's kind of like that old envelope system to a degree that we probably learned about. And yes, Profit First, Terry, I love Profit First. It's been a game changer for us because, and once you start using it, you realize, there's a value that you have to your business and to your money, that once you start using a system like Profit First, it's fantastic. And it works really nicely with YNAB as well. There's actually Profit First professionals I know that teach YNAB, and vice versa, YNAB professionals that now are using Profit First within it. So definitely highly recommend You Need a Budget, YNAB, especially in conjunction with Profit First if you've read that book. If you've not read that book, you owe it to yourself to do it. All right, finally, we're at the last one. Zapier. You're like, Mike, you've had no automated tools so far. Like, what about IFTTT? What about all these other? No, Zapier's the one. Again, they used to sponsor the podcast, and I think they've sponsored a newsletter or two. I still am only cutting my teeth with Zapier to a degree. Automation for me is more mental. Like, I want to be able to have quick ways to remember, like today is my planning day, so what planning should I do? Like that should be something that mentally I go through because that won't break. The connection there is less likely to break, whereas if I'm connecting, like, say, Evernote to Google Drive, well, that could break if Evernote changes something or Google does or whatever. Zapier, what I like is that Zapier allows me to connect tools for my business that I might not be able to connect otherwise. It used to be one of those things where people would say, it's too expensive. But when you think about it, if you have people doing that for you, that they could be better served either A, doing something else, or your money could be better served in another capacity, why not use a tool like Zapier? There are so many things that Zapier can do. You can set up Zaps to the nth degree. Now, there is a learning curve, no question, but they have the tools to help you learn. And actually, I'm taking a course by my friend Jimmy Rose, who created a Zapier course. Let me just see if I can get it in here in the link. I might just drop it in the chat once I open up. Oh, by the way, I'll do a bonus one at the end here too, just as we wrap up. There it is. So let me autofill this, and I will remember me. Just 1 second. Yeah. So if I was to, so he's got, let's go to courses, open link in new tab, and Zapier. He's got Zapier Advanced and Zapier Basics. He has some great stuff here. So if you're looking for it, I'll drop a link in the description so that way you can check it out. It's really helping me get a good handle on Zapier, and it's something he's just built on the side. It's kind of cool. So James Rose, great little course there. If I can share it, I will, and I should be able to. It even includes a Facebook group to go along with it. So there you go, Zapier. I will, and to your point, Terry mentions thanks for the course. It's one of those tools where you see Zapier and you're like, I want to be able to use it, but how? And to be able to go through a course, and I love doing these. Like, I love having, I'm taking a course on how to film make a little bit better. I'll probably take a course on DaVinci Resolve so I can get better at that. I don't mind taking courses for very specific things. Short courses too. I think that's one of the things I'm going to be doing inside of my membership site, Time Crafting Trust, is shorter courses that are deliberate, like how to time craft inside Todoist, how to time craft inside of Asana, things like that. That are going to be really powerful. And if you're a Time Crafting Trust member, you'll have access to them for free because they're part of your membership. But I think those courses are really valuable because they're short. You can get in, learn what you need to, come back to them as you need, and get out, right? So Canva had that for a while. I know Relay that has some courses, but some people are building courses like Jimmy has for Zapier, and I think it's a fantastic thing. Finally, bonus tool. What the heck? I couldn't list this tool because it doesn't start with a letter. 1Password, the number 1 password. So that is the bonus tool that I would recommend. Now, yes, there's LastPass, there's a bunch of others. 1Password's been around for a long time, and I love it. Available on all the platforms. I'm using 1Password for Teams. My wife is using it. We've now allowed, like, we're incorporating it in with things like our, my mother-in-law, for example. I got all these passwords right now. Let's get you in 1Password. Things like that. And what I love about that too is that if it's 1Password for families, and let's say you trust, there's some trust there, which there should be, and you're like, okay, well, you forgot your password. Oh, I've got it right here. Or, let's, at a point where there's this 1Password emergency kit that I used to make, and now they've got one, but, and I haven't updated in a while, but the fact of the matter is at some point we're not going to be here anymore. To be able to have somebody look at your, to be able to go into 1Password and know they have all your passwords is to me, that's hugely time saving, not for you so much anymore, but for the people that you've left behind. So I would say that if you're going to pick a password management tool, 1Password is the way to go. That's it. I'd love to get your comments. If you were here live, thank you so much for joining me live. I know we're in a little long, but I love talking about tools. I love talking about apps. While I don't do a lot of them anymore because they tend to move more frequently, yeah, Terry, 1Password's great. I know I don't really do a lot of videos on these, but when I do a video on an app or tool, it means I really love it, really love using it. So these are 27 tools that I absolutely love to use. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that, you want to learn more, please leave them in the comments below. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'm going to be doing a live, like I said, every month, so stay tuned for the next live. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any posts or anything like that, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell. If you like this video, give it an old thumbs up. Even if you don't like part of it, give it an old thumbs up. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to join me. Until next time. And let's see how I can kill this thing. I never know how to kill these lives. There we go. Until next time. We'll see you later.